should probably spend a little time in countries where the state is weak and people take the law into their own hands. The results are never pretty, right? I mean, we need a strong state to keep order. We need the police and the military. We need a state that has a true monopoly on the use of violence, so that people don't feel the need to be violent themselves to protect their interests. But the power of the state really needs to be reserved for things that safeguard human well-being, and it needs to do it in ways that make sense. There was a related question here about Chomsky. Chomsky says new atheism is state worship in disguise. You don't subscribe to state communism or fascism, but at the same time, I don't see anything in your writings against the concept of the state. Do you believe states are necessary evils? Would that count as state worship? I'm sympathetic with having as little government as is compatible with human well-being. But human well-being is the point, right? And in some ways, we want the state to be more efficient and powerful than it is. So ask yourself, if you ever needed the cops, really needed them, because your life or the life of someone you love depended on it, how long would you want to wait for them to show up? Would you want them there in 2 seconds? Well, that's Minority Report, right? How strong a state would you need to manage that? No doubt there would be unintended consequences of having that kind of response time. So it's always a balancing act between things like security and freedom and privacy, but I'm pretty confident that the world isn't ready for a stateless utopia that's like Burning Man for 7 billion people. Okay, maybe in 100 years, or maybe in 1,000. But it seems to me that people aren't good enough yet. They're not ethical enough. And one reason they aren't is identity politics, which is just tribalism by another name. So my politics are hard to summarize because my goal is to understand what is actually going on in the world. And I'd like to see us use that understanding to improve human life. And unfortunately, there's no political party or platform that reliably tracks that concern. So rather than talk about parties and platforms, I tend to talk about specific issues. Now, as many of you know, I've come out very strongly against Trump and very tepidly for Clinton, and there were many questions about why I haven't considered a third-party candidate. Well, the reason is that to vote for anyone other than Clinton increases the likelihood that we'll have President Trump. And I really think that would be potentially catastrophic. Now, many people have criticized me for my rejection of Trump and my support for Clinton. And unfortunately, this criticism never makes much sense. I've been very clear in describing Clinton as the lesser of two evils. There is a ton to say about why she's not a great candidate. Okay, I totally understand why some people don't like her and don't trust her. But even with all her problems, she will probably be a competent president. In fact, I think she stands a chance of being a good president because she is actually smart and well-informed and reasonably concerned about not destroying the world. And that's true even with all the stupid lies and mistakes she's trailing behind her. I mean, yes, there is something fairly rapacious and opportunistic about both Clintons, but their vices are mostly aligned with reasonable policies. There are exceptions, but I think this is generally true. And again, most crucially, they are not idiots or ignoramuses. Now, I won't go on and on about Trump here for a full hour, because I already did that in podcast number 38, the second of the End of Faith sessions, to the horror of at least 20% of you. But I'll just say that those of you who are mystified that I could forgive Clinton her obvious lying and other indiscretions just don't understand what a dangerous imbecile I think Trump is. I really think he is a child in a man's body. He is a malignantly selfish, ignorant, and petty person, and a tyrant in the making, insofar as our system could accommodate a tyrant. As I said on that other podcast, if you're supporting the guy because he'll, quote, shake things up, I think you're just playing a game of chicken with human history, and there's no one in the other car.